Welcome to Living the Smarter Science of Slim, where we provide a scientifically proven lifestyle for long-term health and fat loss by eating more and exercising less, but smarter.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor is hiding in the corner for this podcast because I am joined by none other than the dynamic estrogen duo of Dr. Kathy Patel and Carrie Brown.
Hey everyone.
Hey, hi. It's great to be here again.
So we've got Kathy in the house, which means it's none other than time for ding 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 Smarter Science of Slim Q&A from the support group.
Yes. Well, we've got a bunch of really good questions here. Let's start with Megs 768. She has a question. She can't get sore and wonders if she's too experienced to benefit from the eccentric exercises. She says she did the SSOS.
Many S's. See anemone. Go ahead. Sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
Leg press, the last two reps on both legs. She was failing at about 8 seconds when the weight was at a certain level. However, she did this after a 2-hour interval bike and a 30-minute circuit class with ball squat throws, burpees, and etc. And she's still not sore at all. Mind you, she does train for marathons and Ironman, and she's used to training pretty hard, about 15 hours a week in the off season and 25 during peak. So she wants to know, is she really too fit to get the benefits from these eccentric exercises?
Okay, so first of all, that's a lot of exercise. Goodness.
Sure
I haven't done that much in a whole year.
Which is all. I mean, if Meg 768 enjoys that, we're all about people enjoying themselves. So I'll give a personal anecdote, and then we can wax scientific a little bit. So, personal anecdote: I have been strength training seriously, and with a lot of scientific / professional. Like, I'm not just screwing around when I go to the gym. I've been doing that for probably 15 years now, and I am able to make myself sore. So I think there is no, just because you've done something for a long time, like no matter how good you are at math, there is always some formula somewhere that will challenge you. So I think generally speaking, when it comes to either physical skills or mental skills, you will never get to a point where there is nothing that could make you sore, either physically or even mentally.
Right.
That's sort of my philosophical, personal anecdote. I still get so sore that sometimes, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, my legs get so sore that sometimes the day of my eccentric routine, I have to take some ibuprofen when I try to sleep at night. Otherwise, I can't sleep. So,
wow.
Anyway, I'm not saying that's good and that everyone should do that, but you can get sore. And then we'll talk about the science behind it, but what do you guys think?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of thinking that Megs is doing, with all this exercise she's doing, getting kind of geeky here. I think she may be depleting her muscles of glycogen.
Yep.
And so she's really not able to actually exercise the type 2B muscle fibers maximally. Yep. So I'm sure she's doing a lot of great exercise and burning a lot of calories, probably feeling good, but probably won't strengthen the type 2B muscle fibers if she exercises that much.
And Kathy, I think you're absolutely correct. I'll even take it one step further and say that especially as she looks like she's relatively young, and this matters no matter your age, that level of exercise, you kind of want to watch out for the impact on your T3 levels. Because like that much exercise can actually not only cause you to not be able to exercise in a way that will cause maximal benefit, but just like anything done in excess is not healthy. And that level of physical stress placed on the body in a continuous fashion, it might border on someone who is trying to burn fat and like takes Winstrol or some other illegal form of hormones to help with that, where it's like, wait. Like, the goal here is health. So let's not shoot ourselves in the foot by taking our goal of health and actually turning it to something that is unhealthy. And I don't necessarily think she's there yet, but that's something we always want to be sensitive to. But Kathy, I think your point is spot on, where like literally if you are out of energy and tired, you won't be able to hit that level of intensity. You won't be able to hit that level of resistance. You just won't. Like, even if you don't sleep enough, you're not going to be able to do it. So
yeah, and I think for a person who's training for a specific goal, and if you have a question in terms of an elite athletic goal, I think it's really important to have one-to-one coaching from a really skilled trainer.
Absolutely. Just like you would, I mean, if you have a specific medical condition, every person is unique, and if you have a very specific goal, you want that specific coaching. Right. And Kathy, just to get back to the point you made earlier, and I'll take it back to a personal anecdote, you are spot on that I think the issue here is the over-exercise, not because like she's bad and she shouldn't do that, but even for myself personally, we talk in the Smarter Science of Slim about how you could do one high-quality interval workout and one eccentric workout per week. But once you get your eccentrics, if you're able to take them to the maximum level of, let's call it, efficiency, the interval training workout will compromise your ability to train eccentrically. And that's working out twice a week. And like, speaking from experience, if I do an eccentric leg press with, let's say, 100 pounds, obviously that's not what it is, but let's just say 100 pounds, and I did that after a week of rest, and then I do interval training on Wednesday of the next week, and then I cannot do 100 pounds when I do my eccentrics again, and because of that I don't get sore. So again, circling back, here's the challenge I would say to what is our wonderful user's name? Sorry.
It's Megs.
Megs 768. Megs, if you want to really test eccentrics, you're going to have to do an experiment, which you may not want to do because it sounds like you really enjoy a lot of exercise, and that's all good. But what the experiment would be is stop all other forms of exercise. And remember, we don't consider walking and being active or things like yoga that are restorative to be exercise. Stop all other forms of exercise as we define exercise for 1 week, and then do eccentrics as intensely as we talk about, which is you're essentially trying to do an isometric, but the weight is so heavy that it forces you to do an eccentric. And then see if that makes you sore.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's a really neat idea, Jonathan.
Well, thank you. I try.
Yeah. Well, here's another question from For My Sons. I like that name. That's really neat. On traditional weight training versus eccentric training. He said he's 58 years old and would like to remain at his present weight but lower his body fat. At present, he's following Jim Wendler's 531 programs, but he wants to look like you, Jonathan.
Well, then he should talk to my mother and father, because they're the only way to get the genetics.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we're all different, right? I mean, there's no.
So he was wondering if he should switch to your exercise program of eccentric exercise. You were a weightlifter. Would you have gotten the look you have now using your eccentric exercise program? That's really his.
Gotcha.
His
so
question.
First, thank you for the very, very kind compliment. That's very kind of you. And I will answer this question by actually giving a little bit of personal history on myself. And there's actually a blog post on the Smarter Science of Slim website written by my personal physician about my history here. And it's an interesting read, so check that out. I think it's like search for Scott Ripple. That's the name of my doctor. Anyway, so before I went eccentric and sane, before I went sane and got eccentric, like we talked about, I was a trainer, and I was doing a more traditional 5 to 6, let's call it traditional if you're crazy like I was, a more neurotic exercise routine, which was exercising 5 to 7 times per week and eating a more traditional high carbohydrate, low fat, low protein diet. And I didn't get bad results. I was at 200 pounds, I'm 6 feet tall, with a 34-inch waist. So, but for all intents and purposes, very, very good shape. Probably 12% body fat, I think, would be the range for someone of that height and weight. 34-inch waist. So I went SANE, got Eccentric. So again, today focused much more on the nutritional profile we describe of vast majority of the volume of the food I eat is non-starchy vegetables. That's followed from a volume perspective from nutrient-dense protein, predominantly fish and grass-fed meats or free-range poultry, followed by, I actually don't eat any fruits except before and after my workout, but that's just for me personally. And then I would follow that up with whole food fats. For me, I like to focus on, we talked about flax, but even more so than flax, coconut, cocoa, and then, of course, the wonderful omega-3s I get from seafood. Anyway, that, and I do my Eccentrics once a week. That's it. I now weigh, now I think I'm at 96. I'm still 6 feet tall, and I have a 30.5-inch waist. Like, none of my pants fit me anymore. So, and I don't mean to be gross, but like there's veins where you wouldn't expect veins to be, like in my pelvic region. So I think I'm... The point is, TMI! The reason I'm saying that, though, is that's generally indicative. I personally like the visual body fat test. So when you start to get down to single-digit body fat percentages, I'm now being objectified by the women in the room. Thank you. I'm trying to stay focused here.
So are we, Jonathan. So are we.
Point is, that's right. I think that's like that puts you in the 8% body fat ballpark. So anyway, the long version is your exercise routine is not going to be the determinant here. It's the sanity of your diet that is going to allow you to get to that body fat level percentage. And in fact, if you don't trust me, actually talk with someone who, there are specific trainers out there that professional physique athletes work with. It's called like pre-contest dieting. And it's called pre-contest dieting for a reason, because their workout routine doesn't really change. Their diet does. And it becomes like very, very, very meticulous and very, very high quality. Long answer to the question is, I've personally seen the most success doing what we describe in the Smarter Science of Slim, and I wish I would have known it earlier, because I would have saved my left pec from getting torn, my right hamstring from getting torn, my right hip flexor from getting torn, and other fun injuries that I can't think of right now that I got.
And you wouldn't have had to have replaced all your pants.
And because I would have just been at that point throughout. So again, it's not about doing more. It's not about trying harder. It's about working smarter. And I think that's the way to go. And again, if you're training eccentrically, you're going to get the benefits from exercise. The rest of it is diet.
Yeah, no, as you were saying that, I was thinking, would that all of us would have figured this out a few
Absolutely.
tens of years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And can we just, I just want to go back to that question real quick, Kathy. Sorry, just one other thing to point out. So for my sons, this is a helpful paradigm shift. We've talked about it a little bit, but this is an illustration. This is an illustration, right? The body burns fat or builds muscle when, for lack of better terms, hormones or your brain tells it to, right? So a very effective way to build muscle, for example, do not do this. I'm illustrating a point, is to take steroids. Why do steroids work? Because they tell your brain to tell your body to build muscle. You could sit down and never move and inject yourself with steroids and your body would build muscle. Don't do that. It's not healthy and it's not legal. The reason I make that point is our goal, if it's to build muscle or to burn fat, is to trigger the hormonal reaction in our body that tells our body to do those things. So the question is not like, is this workout program, this, that, the other? The question is, how can I trigger that hormonal response? And the way you trigger that hormonal response is 90% plus by the way you're eating and 10% from the way you're exercising. And it doesn't have to be complicated. The deeper the muscle fiber, the larger the hormonal response it triggers. And the more muscle fibers you work, the more significant the hormonal response is. So, simple logic tells us that an exercise routine that works all 4 types of your muscle fibers, which by definition can only happen if you're using heavier loads, and then exercise routine that allows you to use heavier loads in the safest way possible, because if you hurt yourself, you ain't going to be able to do anything, would be eccentric training. So the question is then, why complicate it? We have found a methodology that allows us to work all of our muscle fibers, and the muscle fibers that are the most responsible for the hormonal response, which triggers muscle gain and fat loss. Keep it simple and do what works.
I'm shaking my head. Yes, I suppose I should say that.
Use your words, as my mother would say.
Yes. Yes. Well,
Is that helpful? I mean, I hope I didn't babble too much there.
I think it's very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's another question by Lex Luthor 61.
His name is actually Lex Luthor. Lex.
Lex, yeah.
Can we call him Lex?
Reading through the book Body of Science and viewing a bunch of YouTube videos, they show doing high-intensity exercises using a normal rep sequence, 2 hands up slowly, 2 hands down slowly, as opposed to 2 up and 1 down. He understands the basis of this, but wants to know really whether this is going to lead to really not getting the maximal weight because it's really hard to judge. And he's thinking the 2 up and 2 down method just seemed more straightforward. He's really having trouble getting that 2 up and 1 down.
Sure. So the point here is always to find a method by which you can work your muscle fibers as deeply as possible, right? So we know science is very, very clear that we cannot handle as much resistance concentrically as we can eccentrically. The only reason we recommend the 2 up, 1 down is not because that in and of itself is some awesome watershed technique, but rather if you don't have a spotter, the only way with most exercises that you can lower more weight than you raise is to raise it with 2 limbs and lower it with 1. However, if you're doing bench press and you have a spotter and you can, and the spotter is very competent and very much paying attention, like, again, this is a little bit riskier, there is absolutely no reason for you to lower the weight with 2 arms and then not have your spotter help you raise it with 2 arms as well. The question is, you have to find a method by which you can take an exercise and use less resistance on the way up and more resistance on the way down. There are machines that enable you to do that, such as ones that use air pressure. So if you have a machine that uses air pressure, for example, if you're doing a chest press, there's usually little foot pedals or thumb switches where you use there's a plus or minus, and if you hit the plus, it increases the resistance. So you could imagine putting 0 pounds on it, getting in the top position, hitting the plus switch till it gets to 100 pounds, slowly lowering it, hitting the minus switch till it goes to 50, raising it with both arms. If you can do that, that's great. Again, the point with the Smarter Science of Slim, all the recommendations are understand the spirit of it. The spirit of it is lower more resistance than you raise, because that will enable you to work more muscle fibers than if you stopped when you could no longer raise the weight. However you can do that most effectively, do it. Using 2 limbs down and 1 up is just one method.
Yeah. The thing that I would add is that spotting is so important, and most of the time you are your own spotter.
Exactly.
You really don't have someone along with you to do that, so that using your other hand, if you're particularly lowering a very significant weight, using your other hand, not having any weight on it, but as a spotter for that hand, is really a good safety issue and keeping you on track as well.
But the key thing, there's also, again, if you really want to take this deeper, the key point is we want more load on the way down, less on the way up. There's other ways to do that. For example, you could lower resistance for very, very, lower the resistance really slowly and then raise it very quickly. I'm just going to use an example here. Imagine you were doing squats, traditional barbell squats. A way to make a traditional barbell squat eccentric, quote unquote, just focusing on the lowering without a spotter, would be you have weight on the bar that you can do a normal squat with. You would normally go, down for 2 seconds, up for 2 seconds, or whatever, like more of a traditional squat movement. You usually squat in a squat rack. I'm sorry for folks who don't care about this. I'm sorry for going deep into it, but you traditionally squat in a squat rack, and there are pins so that if you can't raise the weight, you can set it down and it doesn't crush you. So you would squat down incredibly slowly. So you squat down for 10 seconds. You would rest the weight on the pins, and you would actually give your legs a second to recover. So you'd pause for like 2 seconds, not bearing the weight on your legs. And then you would just very safely lift the weight, which you could because you had rested at that point, and you would raise the weight relatively quickly, which is easier than lowering it very, very slowly. So again, there's many, many, many ways to squeeze the most results out of your workout by emphasizing the eccentric components. This is just one way.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Here's a question from Sandy about blood sugar. She asks, is blood sugar measurement a good indicator of sane eating? After what I think was a very sane meal, mine was 113. I was expecting closer to 100. Well,
I don't know the answer to this question.
Well,
Finally, yes.
Well, I had some,
the meal is sane
suggestions
if it's sane,
for Sandy, but normally the blood sugar is something that goes up and down throughout the day. It goes up for about 2 hours after a meal, and it reaches its peak. Then slowly it goes down again over the next couple of hours. So how high it goes depends on a number of things, including when you check it, your insulin level and sensitivity, your activity level, the quantity and quality of food that you eat. So a blood sugar of 113 after a meal is definitely not at all abnormal. Unless you're diabetic and need to make decisions about controlling insulin or oral agents, testing your blood sugar probably isn't going to be helpful to you. If you read The Smarter Science of Slim and look at the Quick Start Guides, I think you get an idea with the 7-day meal plans exactly what sane eating is and what it's going to do, much more than testing your blood sugar would do for you.
Totally. No, I would agree with that. I would also say that the eating, and Kathy, I'm going to kind of make a little bit of an extreme statement, so feel free to reel me in if this is not backed by your practice. For example, eating fat will not spike your blood sugar.
That's true.
It can't. So the reason I say this is, Smarter Science, we often say biology isn't a matter of opinion. If you eat non-starchy vegetables, if you eat nutrient-dense proteins, if you eat whole food fats, notice I'm excluding fruits, your blood sugar cannot get too high.
That's correct.
It's just not possible. It's like trying to mix oil and water. Like, you're going to do it. Like, eating fat will never spike your blood sugar. It can't.
Right.
Like, a circle can't have corners.
So when I had my numbers done last, my blood done, my non-fasting glucose was lower than my fasting glucose should have been.
Jeez.
So, there's obviously an incredibly low amount of sugar floating around.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't fasted, and yet my number was lower than if I had fasted.
Jeez.
So, but, and I eat sane.
Yeah.
The vast, most of the time, 98% of the time.
Absolutely. And the key thing here, I also, Sandy, I don't mean to, in some ways, I think you could say a super high blood sugar level is, you cannot, one, there's a question of what is a high blood sugar level, but if we could, for you, define a high level of blood sugar, which I don't think you're hitting that range yet, the only way one could hit a abnormally high level of blood sugar would be to eat insane foods.
Consistently.
Yes.
So, that's but don't, just again, instead of testing your blood sugar, let's just stick with sanity, and you're good to go.
That's
right.
correct.
And my point was, I think that to do it for every meal, you're going to get a really skewed idea of what it's doing. But I have it done, twice a year.
Yep.
But then I know it's always going to be low.
Yep.
There are other tests that are more appropriate monitors of how your blood sugar is doing over time, and that's particularly hemoglobin A1C.
Yes.
Which tells you blood sugar over a number of months and averages those things out.
And just can I draw on that real quick, Dr. Kathy, because I think that just that the macro point of trends over time and over significant periods of time is such a key point, right? I mean, even like looking at my weight now, my stress levels now, my anything right now in this moment, if we're living just moment to moment, like what do I weigh today? What do I weigh tomorrow? What's my waist measurement now? What's my blood sugar right now? Versus taking more of the, what is the trend? Am I trending better or worse? Looking at it over a longer period of time. Otherwise,
You drive yourself nuts.
peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys, and it's all about, invest in the stock market. Over time, it will go up. Like, don't look at it every single day. Do the right thing, make the right investments financially. It will go up, but maybe not in this economy. But make the right investments.
Generally.
Make the right investments biologically, and you will do better. You can't not. So, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. For example, if you eat a significant amount of Costco rotisserie chicken, this will work for me. It's delicious, laden with salt, and got a little sugar in it too. I think it's got to. It's so good. But if you eat quite a bit of that one day, you'll find that my weight might be up 3 pounds the next day. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, because of the salt.
Yeah.
And so, checking your weight is irrelevant anyway, but checking it daily is even more irrelevant.
Absolutely. And that's all this like data collection. Like if you like it and if it supports you, do it. But the day that it starts putting doubts in your mind, it's doing more harm than it's good. Mm-hmm. It's not helping you be healthy. It's causing neuroticism and self-doubt, which is not what we want.
Sure.
No.
Okay.
That was a lot of good questions, Kathy. Do we have more for future episodes?
Oh, we have many, many more.
We got a lot of mo, as Mr. T would say.
I have a story about Mr. T for the next episode.
Okay, well, that gives reason. Listeners, you got to stay tuned because Dr. Kathy's going to tell us about her story about Mr. T in the next episode.
Mr. T and Bill Gates on an airplane.
This sounds like a joke. Mr. T and Bill Gates are on an airplane.
And me.
And Dr. Stay tuned for this wonderful joke because this is going to be a good one. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us this week. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm signaling for Carrie to do the outro.
She's just looking blankly.
I was trying to be like, Carrie, do the outro because you haven't talked too much. Carrie, do the outro because you haven't talked too much.
It's been awesome, people. Lovely to have you here, Kathy.
It's lovely
We'll be back again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Remember, eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. Talk with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet. If you like the podcast and if there's other ways we can help you, please join us in the Smarter Science of Slim support group, which is freely available at the Smarter Science of Slim website, smarterscienceofslim.com. There you'll find all kinds of free recipes and success stories and just all kinds of fun stuff like how to help your kids go sane and just great community content.
And just one last thing before you go, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and up onto Amazon.com and leaving us a review and then going over to Facebook and liking us, we would hugely appreciate it.